Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to count down the 10 worst characters to date on the TV show The Walking Dead. I've decided to only include characters in this list who have appeared in more than one episode. There will be spoilers in this video for the entirety of the show, you have been warned. So without further ado, let's begin. Tarah. I don't particularly have a massive problem with Tarah, which is why she takes the number 10 spot on this list. On the contrary, I actually enjoyed her introduction to the show in which she met the governor. I thought it was a clever turn of events having a fight against Rick at the prison, only to see the error of her ways and join as a member of the group further down the road. However, since she has settled into Alexandria, I can't really say that she has added anything to the show at all. Her relationship with Denise didn't grab my attention due to the fact that Denise was a really dull character, and their time together was a bit of a slog to sit through. Since then, she has also appeared in arguably the worst ever episode of The Walking Dead, an episode that centered almost entirely on her, which just goes to prove that she should remain in the shadows rather than taking the spotlight. Dale? When I first watched The Walking Dead, I didn't actually mind Dale. I mean, he wasn't the most exciting character on screen, but he seemed like a decent guy, and it was a shame to see him bite the dust during season 2. However, on second viewing, I actually found him to be rather irritating. His constant lecturing of others around him, combined with his naivety concerning the state of the world, caused me to feel the same way about him as Shane did. There's no denying that deep down Dale was a nice guy with good intentions, but it doesn't prevent me from finding him to be pretty goddamn annoying. Deanna. I hate to repeat myself, but most people who watch my videos know that I feel The Walking Dead started to go downhill as soon as Rick and co arrived at Alexandria. And in my opinion, Deanna didn't exactly help keep things interesting. For me, I found this ex-leader of the community to be extremely tedious every time she appeared on screen, and as a viewer I never connected with her or grew to like her at all. Her death had little to no impact on me, and in fact I was actually kind of pleased, as it meant that finally the plot could move forward from its solely Alexandria-centered narrative. Carl, Coral, or Carl as most people that aren't Rick call him by, would be much higher up this list were it not for the fact that his character has significantly improved over the last couple of years. I mean, Chandler Riggs' acting skills can still be described as very questionable at best. Just watch his line delivery during the scene when he pops out of one of Negan's convoys at Sanctuary and you'll know exactly what I'm getting at. But thankfully his character isn't as awful now as he was when he first appeared on the show. During the first couple of seasons of The Walking Dead, to put it bluntly, Carl was an absolute little shit, always running off and doing the exact opposite of what his dad and the rest of the group told him to do, which as a result often put the lives of others around him at risk. As a character, he's made many improvements since, and hopefully Carl can continue his development towards becoming a better character next season. Laurie? I'm not really sure if it was the writer's intentions or not to make Laurie extremely unlikable, but if it was, well, they did a wonderful job at doing so, as I don't know anyone who watched the show who actually liked her character. Sleeping with Rick's best mate Shane after only a couple of weeks of her thinking he was dead didn't exactly help give viewers the best first impression of her. She was also a master manipulator of both Rick and Shane, causing the two best friends to completely hate each other. I mean, yes, Shane was a dick, but Laurie treated him with complete disdain and threw him out for the trash as soon as Rick showed back up on the scene. Hell, she even told Rick at one point that he had to kill Shane, only to then have a massive sulk when Rick told her he had done it. It seemed at times that she definitely had a screw or two loose, and I, like many others, was actually pretty happy when she left the show after giving birth to Judith. Sam? Speaking of characters who I was glad to see leave the show, Sam Anderson is another on that particular list. It might sound a bit wrong to say that I enjoyed seeing a child getting eaten and torn apart, but my god, this kid was irritating, constantly whining and moaning at nearly every given opportunity. Although admittedly part of the reason why he was a bit of an odd boy can be put down to having to live with his abusive father, the fact that he spent all his time since the outbreak living behind the walls of Alexandria was another crucial factor in why, unlike say Carl, he was oblivious to what was actually happening in the outside world. Sam's sheltered upbringing caused him to be pretty useless when it came to dealing with walkers, as shown by his fatal breakdown during the season 6 mid-season premiere, which led to the deaths of his mum and brother and also the loss of Carl's eye. Although I was glad that Sam snuffed it, I was annoyed that his death caused Jessie to die, as I actually quite liked her. I felt she developed into a pretty strong woman over the course of a relatively short amount of time, and it was annoying to see her die as a result of her babyish son. Even in death, Sam still managed to piss me off. Andrea? In my opinion, Andrea is by far the character who was the most wasted on the show. She should have been one of the strongest, most dynamic members of the cast, but instead the show portrayed her as a naive and disloyal woman who would dump her friends for the worst kind of men. She had a thing with Shane and then the governor. Hell, I bet if she was still around now, she would be trying to suck Negan's dick even after seeing her friends killed in front of her. After reading the comics, it became even clearer to me how badly Andrea's adaptation to TV was handled. In comparison, the comic book version is a complete badass, who eventually becomes one of the key members of Rick's group. Whereas the TV show now has Michonne as Rick's love interest, in the comics Rick and Andrea got together after both losing partners. And to be honest, it made a lot more sense and felt a lot more natural than the whole Michonne thing that is currently going on. Andrea should have been one of the show's best long-running characters. Instead, what we got was a shadow of a comic book counterpart who stuttered through 3 seasons before dying in an extremely anticlimactic way. Owen? When it comes to deviating from the comics and creating new TV storylines, The Walking Dead does not have a very good track record. The Prison Flu arc and the Grady Memorial Hospital arc are 2 particular storylines that spring to mind which weren't exactly the greatest. However, the worst original storyline of all belongs to the Wolves arc, which focused on a group of survivors with W's etched into their foreheads who believe that humanity descended from wolves who run around killing people for some reason that is never really explained. Yep, it's as dumb as it sounds. Owen is the leader of the pack. Sorry. And he, in all honesty, is a pretty dire villain. He just doesn't have the same presence as a Negan or the Governor, and I always found his bizarre conversations to be hard to take seriously. As previously alluded to, it's extremely frustrating that none of his or the Wolves' actions were ever really explained. As a leader, he seemed incredibly dumb in randomly targeting settlements to attack, and it really was only a matter of time until he messed up and died. In fact, it was rather disappointing that just prior to his death, he was shown to be more complex than he was previously presented as. Just as his character finally started to get interesting, he was killed off, and as a result he now ends up taking the number 3 spot on this list. Enid! If you were to look up the definition of boring in the dictionary, you would find a picture of Enid next to the description. Okay, perhaps that isn't entirely true, but there's no denying that this relatively recent addition to the Walking Dead cast is not the most fascinating member of the team. When Enid was first introduced, she appeared to be a bit of a quiet loner. She also seemed to be slightly shady as she was constantly hopping over the walls of Alexandria and disappearing to God knows where. This, coupled with her quite miserable nature when around the people of the community, gave me the feeling that maybe she was some kind of spy working for the Wolves. The truth, however, proved to be far more mundane, and ironically, the more I learned about her character and the more exposure that she got, the less intriguing she became. Enid only really seems to exist on the show at the moment so Carl can have a girlfriend. However, with her being promoted to a series regular next season, I'm just praying that the writers do something with her character that causes her to become more compelling to watch. Jadis! Me no like Jadis. Jadis, bad character. Jadis, me think silly. Jadis, okay, I'll stop. But yes, if you watched any of my other Walking Dead videos, you may well have guessed that Mrs. Boldcut would make it all the way to number 1. Her and her junkyard crew are the worst thing that has happened on the show by far. Not only does she have an awful haircut, she also speaks like a caveman, even though society has only fallen apart for a couple of years. I mean, come on, how can you take a character seriously who calls a pile of rubble the up? She also does this really dumb hand twirl thing to signal her people that just looks extremely camp and ridiculous. I really had no idea what the showrunners were thinking when they designed her character. It feels like they just threw together a bunch of random ideas that they thought were cool when they were about 14 and just said, yeah, screw it, she'll do. There's no real reason for her or her people to be on the show. In fact, it feels like her group were only introduced just to pad out last season. The fact that she's been confirmed as a main character for season 8 has somewhat quenched my excitement for when it resumes in October. So there you have it, my 10 worst Walking Dead characters. Let me know your thoughts below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.